One.
Thank you, Sean.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Mullen. I'm the acting chair of the hearing on the comprehensive permit for 582 Blue Hill Avenue. With me are Frank O'Brien and Giselle Joffer, members of the Board of Appeals. Tonight is the 29th hearing, 29th public hearing of this 29th session of this public hearing. Last hearing, we met on the 29th, and the board decided to suspend the receipt of testimony in this hearing and move to a decision-making process, which we've done. And we thank everybody, Mr. Schomer, the applicant, Mr. Hill, the neighbors, others, the town members, and the peer reviewers for their participation in the hearing. We now have everybody's comments with a couple of exceptions that I want to note, and I want to hear from Ms. Barrett, who I think will be late tonight. I believe the status of the hearing is as follows. Ms. Barrett, as per the board's instructions or request, has provided us with a draft set of conditions to consider. In preparing those conditions, Ms. Barrett drew on her own experience, her own observation of the hearing, her own notes, Mr. Schomer's draft conditions, Mr. Hill's draft conditions, comments from the applicants, and some input from the peer reviewers. She then provided comments, that document to us yesterday, which I've read, although I haven't looked at closely, but I have read, and to the town for comment. I believe she's also provided it, correct me if I'm wrong, to Mr. Schomer and to Mr. Hill for their comment. Is that correct?
I just received it, Mr. Chairman, yes.
So you got a little bit of a head, you're slightly behind me, but not too far. Don't feel bad about that, Mr. Hill. So we're not too far ahead of you. Mr. Schomer, do you have it?
Same. I think Ms. Barrett sent it at the same time to Attorney Hill and myself.
Okay. So I don't profess to be an expert in 40B procedure, but we've learned a lot about 40B procedure in conducting 29 sessions of a public hearing. I therefore propose that, and I'd like to hear from Mr. Zawinski, before we consider the merits of the conditions that we've been provided in our own notes and our own knowledge of the hearing, I really want to get input, especially from the town officials, but certainly also from the applicant and from Mr. Hill, who's taken the time to not just propose conditions of his own, but he's now provided us with comments on the applicant's conditions. So thank you. We just received those earlier this evening, and those will be posted to the website for everybody to take a look at. It's for those reasons that I'd like to suggest, and I'd like to hear from the board, suggest that we continue to keep the hearing open for the purpose of gathering the comments and then reconvene for the purpose of debating the conditions 2 weeks from tonight. Members?
Giselle?
Sure, that sounds good to me. So just so I'm clear, the comments would be submitted in writing in the interim.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to suggest that we do it the way we did it last week, which is comments on the conditions that have been provided by any party, whether that be, and Mr. Zawinski, I want to hear from you. I know we're talking about you as if you're not here. We know you're here. It would be from the town, from Mr. Schomer, from Mr. Hill by next Wednesday, and then we'll close the hearing the following Wednesday, debate the merits of the application, and issue the decision by the statutory deadline.
And
So go ahead, Giselle.
yeah, under that schedule, we'd have, as the board, 1 week to review before we started to debate.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to follow up on Giselle's comment, I would just want to make sure that the members of the board had sufficient time to review the materials.
Yeah.
Attorney Hill's information, though, it looks very useful, and I thank him for it. I just was able to look at it quickly within the last hour. So from my point of view, I don't want to have a situation where I'm getting, or the members of the board are getting last minute stuff, and we don't have time to review it. I understand that there are exigent circumstances, and there may be a need for folks to, if you will, to borrow a phrase, put in reply briefs or reply letters. I was once a litigator, but no longer.
Yes.
So
Ms. Johnson will correct you if she feels the need.
I have no doubt, but the bottom line here is that I just want to be able to have enough time to be able to read this stuff, ruminate on it, and be able to compare it, because as of right now, one of the benefits of meeting remotely is that I can have stuff up on my second screen, and I've got literally 4 documents up on my screen here, and we need to be able to be in a position that we're making sense of all this stuff. So that's a long-winded way of saying I agree with Ms. Joffrey, and I agree with your suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zawinski, do you want to be heard?
Sure. Only to say that you may get them at 4:59 on Wednesday, but you will have comments from the town. I'll distribute this to my fellow department heads, and we'll get any comments to you by your Wednesday deadline. So you've got a full week to take a look at those and prepare. That's, I think, plenty of time on our end. So you'll have it.
Red Sox are playing that night, Tim.
Who?
The Red Sox.
I don't know who you're referring to. I'm from Jersey, Mr. Chair, so we'll leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Sorry about your team, Tim.
The Mr. Hill, is that acceptable?
Yes, and I will endeavor to give you my redlined proposed edits, if I have any, to Miss Barrett's draft. That, I'm assuming that's what you'd like.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're giving you an opportunity to review the draft conditions that we've been provided with.
Okay, great.
Mr. Schomer, so the proposal on the table is to close this hearing to further extend the date for submitting testimony for the purpose of receiving comments on the draft conditions that have been provided to Wednesday, October 20th, close of business, and to close this hearing on Wednesday, October 27th, for the purpose of deliberating the merits. Is that acceptable to the applicant?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you and the members. I've just been in touch with my clients while you've been discussing this, and I hate to be disagreeable to this, but we were very much hoping to have the hearing closed tonight.
Yeah.
And my concern is that this is sort of exactly where we were 2 weeks ago, and I thought the board's instructions were pretty specific that all final comments were to be in by last Wednesday. And our comments, I believe I missed that deadline by about a minute, and I see Attorney Hill filed a letter about an hour ago, missing that deadline by a week. So I'm concerned that we're going to be back here 2 weeks from now and having another letter from Attorney Hill in the moments before we run up to the meeting. I don't have an issue if the town department heads would like to provide comments on Ms. Barrett's draft, but at this point, I don't really see much purpose for myself and Attorney Hill to provide further feedback. It's at this point, I think it's up to the board to make your determination on these. these
Fair
issues.
enough, but we want to reach conditions. I'm interested in whether the applicant will find the conditions to be acceptable, and I'm interested in hearing from the applicant as to whether or not they do find or don't find those conditions acceptable, and to the extent that they don't find them acceptable, but we can make them to be acceptable, we can accept testimony for the purpose of revising those comments. Can't do that if the hearing's been closed. That is specifically why why I'm suggesting this procedure.
Well, I would agree with that, Mr. Chair, only to the extent of evidence coming into the hearing. I don't think that there's any prohibition in the 40B process with the conversation between myself and Judy Barrett and even myself and Attorney Hill on
I'm fine
acceptable
with that, but
conditions.
that doesn't happen in a public forum, and we need it to happen in a public forum. I think we've already established the requirement for transparency. I'm happy to have the parties talk to each other behind scenes, but I want on the record for the people who have been spent a year participating in this hearing to have the benefit of seeing its outcome. And as a practical matter, I think you're looking at a 2-week extension to a hearing that's been going on for very nearly 1 year.
I certainly appreciate that, Mr. Chair. If it would be appropriate, could I ask for just a moment's recess to confer offline with my clients?
It's fine.
And perhaps by that time, Judy Barrett will be in the meeting and she can offer her update. Thank you very much. I'll be right back then. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you're welcome. Ms. Barrett.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
So we're in recess
Okay.
for the purpose of permitting Mr. Schomer to confer with his client. I have proposed, and the members have endorsed a proposal under which, well, let me catch you up.
It's okay.
About 10 minutes before the hearing started, we got comments on Mr. Schomer's conditions from Mr. Hill, for which we thanked him. We then discussed continuing this hearing until the 27th and agreeing to accept comments on the conditions that you've drafted from the town, from Mr. Hill and from Mr. Schomer through the 20th. Then having 1 week to consider all of the comments, closing the hearing and debating the merits of the application. Mr. Schomer's objected to that. So he's conferring with his client. We've explained that we would like to do it that way so as to gain information on whether or not the conditions are acceptable to the applicant and to have that done in a public forum. That's where we are.
So you would continue from tonight to the 27th? Is that what you said?
27th, yeah, and then close it, no, to the 20th. And close the hearing on the 27th. We'll take testimony after the 20th because the board wants time to read the materials that we've been provided.
But you don't need to keep the hearing open if you're not taking more testimony.
I know, but we're going to take we're going to take comments on the conditions between now and the 20th.
Right, I understand that, but you don't need to keep the hearing open after the 20th. You can close the hearing that night.
We're not going to meet on the 20th.
Okay, I see.
It'll give us a week to consider everything we have.
How long are we in recess for?
You said 1 minute. It's been more than 1 minute. Be a couple of minutes.
Sorry about that. We should be back momentarily. Jesse's here now.
Mr. Schober.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with my clients.
You're welcome.
We've spoken about it and we're in agreement with this procedure. Just, I'd like to say again for the record, you know, we really want this to be the last time we do this. And I'm urging Attorney Hill once again, please no 11th hour submissions, as has been your routine throughout this hearing. And that's all I'll say about that. We would request that this be the last and final extension of this. And I think it is important to have feedback from the town's department heads and as well as from the parties to this proceeding. So with that, we're in agreement with that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, let me just say I don't feel like I need to defend the board, but we actually haven't had a whole series of continuances. You make it sound like we have. We've had one, and we've done so out of an opportunity to let people be heard on a pretty important matter. So, but thank you very much, Ms. Barrett. Do you want to be heard?
I just want to make it clear that I am putting my foot down and I'm not going to circulate a Word version of that document. I cannot have a zillion versions of it coming back with red line from different computers. So I'm happy to take whatever comments people want to give the board. I'll consider them, but they should be marked up on the PDF or they can just be put in an email.
Okay, fair enough. We will. I think the pleasure of the board is to recess this hearing right now with two deadlines. One week from today, giving interested parties an opportunity to comment on the draft conditions that have been provided. Those comments will be provided to Ms. Sutton and Ms. Barrett not later than 1 week from today, which is October 20th. The board will reconvene at 7 o'clock on October 27th for the purpose of closing the hearing and debating the application in public session. Any objection? Mr. Schomer,
Yes,
could you
Mr. Chair.
send us a note to which you agreed, which confirms your agreement on behalf of the applicant to that, because that will then give us a new date by which we need to give the decision to the town clerk. I think it'd be 40 days from October 27th, which would be pretty close to December 10th-ish.
Yes, I will, Mr. Chair. We'll get that over to you right away.
Thank you very much. Okay, board stands in recess. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.